All right, welcome everybody to the next session. According to my clock, we're right at 11 o'clock and we do have several speakers in the session today, so we'll be prompt and on time. My name is Matt Mayernik. I'm from the United States National Center for Atmospheric Research. And I'm also on the CODATA Executive Committee. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Data Science Journal, which is CODATA's journal. We have several talks today, very interesting looking, and we will go through them in this order as on the agenda. If you're online, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll get to those when we have a chance. These are individual papers, so we'll do questions after each paper. So each speaker will speak for about 11 minutes and we'll have a couple minutes for questions in between. One of our speakers will be a video, which is Laura Malloy, who won't be here to answer questions, but we'll have some interesting topics for us. And yeah, so a few comments for the speakers themselves, since we do have a tight schedule. I have this 2-minute sign, so I'll put this up when there's 2 minutes left. When I stand up, that means you reached your 11 minutes and you're cutting into your question time. So just be aware of that. With that, if we can bring Joy up, our first speaker is actually Joy Owango, coming from the Africa PIT Alliance, who will be speaking virtually. So if we can bring Joy up, we'll get going here. Joy, are you able to hear us?
Yes. Morning. It's a very early morning in Nairobi.
All right, well, we can see you. You can put up your slides.
Sure.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Morning, everybody. Thanks for making time to listen to the presentation. Coming in from Nairobi. And I'll take you through what we've done so far with our project, the Africa PID Alliance. 2 years ago, we launched the project at the IDW conference in Salzburg. And at that point, it was still a concept note, and I'm happy to say we were producing an African-originated persistent identifier, multilinear persistent identifier, and today I'm going to present version 1.0, including the metadata schema, the version 1 metadata schema. So why did we create this persistent identifier? First of all, it's a multilinear persistent identifier. And what we're looking at was targeting indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage due to its multilinear nature, due to its granular aspects where you cannot have standardized metadata. So we decided to create a multilinear persistent identifier. So this identifier is called the Digital Object Container Identifier, and it can put in various types of persistent identifiers supporting the variant level of indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. And out of that, we realized we could actually use it for more than just subject specification element. And now we can actually support it for workflows. So what I'll take you through today is from the indigenous knowledge bit, the subject aspect, and then also the various persistent identifiers we've successfully integrated into and the seed use cases we are working on. So when we created the Africa PID Alliance, as I said, our objective was to see how we could protect indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage because of helicopter science and how do you track the research outputs out of it. It's not easy to actually get metadata standards for indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. So we felt the best way to do this is through creating an identifier where you have a resource type and you track all the outputs that came out of the resource type. The resource type being the subject, in this case, a collection coming out of a museum or a university. So the cultural indigenous knowledge collection. So this is the Continental Project, and these are our founding partners. And these are our infrastructural pipeline partners. Our objective is to make sure that the metadata and all the data stays in Africa. So this is why it is so important that we have our data centers in Africa. And the team that is helping create this project is made up of not only African partners, but some of these members that you're seeing here. And that includes the DOI Foundation, Crossref, Donor Foundation, CNRI, the RDA, and the various continental partners. They have been very effective in guiding us in creating this persistent identifier. So what we are leveraging on existing technology. So the RDM is made out of Invenio, the user interface, and the digital object management is made up of, is from CODRA, from CNRI, and our data center is at Kenneth, the National Research Education Network, though we're also moving it to the Ubuntu Alliance, which will give us actually more space because we will have access. This will be supporting Eastern and Southern African countries. The reason why we are putting it in the NRENs is that not all African countries have very strong infrastructural systems or data centers for their higher education systems. So putting it in an NREN would be ideal as well. Now, what is the digital object container identifier? That is the persistent identifier we've created. It's called the doc ID. We have the doc ID. We've managed to successfully integrate ACK keys, ROR, DOIs, different types of DOIs, RAID as well. So earlier in the week, there was a RAID to riches presentation. We are part of that as well. So the idea is to bring in all these persistent identifiers in one ecosystem, especially when you're looking at the workflow from cultural heritage, the cultural collection, all the way to the various outputs that come out of it. And on top of that, I'll share with you the pipeline of persistent identifiers that we've also included, we are including, and also the regional identifiers we've added. So this is the docket pool. I won't go into detail about this. I will share the slides with you, but I'll go straight into what to expect when you go to the doc ID. So this is the live digital object container identifier. One of the things we have done is that we have created it with a global South lens. So it comes in the 5 integration languages of the African Union. So each user interface is translated into those respective languages, which is extremely important because of the variance of the languages. And the reason why we've also done this is that the more we are working with various regional persistent identifiers, it also gives us the opportunity to have user interfaces, let's say like in Mandarin or in Japanese or in Korean if needed. So what do you expect in the digital object container identifier? So doc ID. And how is it multilinear in nature? As I said, its multilinear nature is its ability to accommodate different persistent identifiers. So number one, you'll have your resource type as the trunk. So it could be indigenous knowledge, cultural heritage, or patents. And as I said, our personas have actually expanded. So I'll share that with you as well. So it goes beyond just the subject specific element, but now to even workflow specification due to its multilinear nature. So you have the resource type, could be in this case, since you're focusing on indigenous knowledge as a subject or cultural heritage. So you'll have that and it's assigned a doc ID. Any single output that comes out of it, you can either assign. When you see me putting DOI, it could be Korea DOI, China DOI, Taiwan DOI, any of the DOIs from the DOI foundations, as we are members, data site or crossref. It can also, and you can also have documents assigned to it, and within the documents, you can put in app keys or the CSTR. You can put in a linear handle. You can use in the linear handle as well. Remember, the doc ID is a handle, but it's a multilinear. It's a multilinear persistent identifier. So we kind of call it a super handle because it can accommodate all these persistent identifiers. So we are learning so much how much the handle is capable of accommodating different types of identifiers. And then at the bottom, you can have your project with the RAID, the ORCID ID, and the ROR ID as well. All of them are lumped in one container, the doc ID. So this is how it actually supports within the various user interface. So you'll have the resource type, which will be assigned the doc ID, which is the 20 dots. As I said, it's a handle, but being multilinear. And then any output that comes out of that collection reports to that doc ID. So whether it's articles, and you can see the respective identifiers that would be assigned to it. And then documents, you can see the various identifiers that will be assigned to it. Creators, you can see also when the creators will report to the doc ID. And one of the things we are learning as we are working with the various use cases is that as much as we can integrate the doc ID either in DSpace or Fiction, particularly DSpace, anything below 6.0 have issues with authentication of ORCID IDs. So the doc ID comes in very handy when it comes to also the authentication of ORCID profiles. So that is one of the things we're truly excited about because we're trying to make the ecosystem fair in places that have fallen through the cracks. So we are not competing with existing primary persistent identifiers, it's complementing them and making the ecosystem more fair. Organizations as well are assigned the ROR and they report to the resource type. So you'll have the people who are involved, the funders who are involved, the organizations involved, any documents and publications that came out of the collection, all report to the resource type and of course the project. All this is assigned to a doc ID. So 1.0 is ready for launch. Actually, it is live. The reason why we are yet to launch it formally is because we want to launch it with the use cases we are currently working with, which I'll share with you. We're going through the integrations of Ringgold and ISNI, which is truly exciting because it's also opening up the personas of stakeholders who use Ringgold and ISNI. And we got into this partnership with Ringgold and ISNI after our meeting in Salzburg as well. No, at the Pete Fest in Prague last year. Then we're also members of the Fair Digital Objects, and we are members of the DOI Foundation. And I'm also happy to say that within the 2 years, we've already created the Doc ID metadata schema version 1. So it is open for criticism. We look forward to hearing your views about it. We are going to be publishing it in Zenodo very soon. But we are very excited to share the fact that it has all the integrated persistent identifiers that I've shared with you. The fact that it is multilinear in nature, we felt that it was important that it shows its parent-child relationship, the parent being the doc ID and the child being the various semantics that are assigned their respective identifiers. So I'm happy to say that that relationship is very clear, as you can see. We recreated a visualization of how it actually works. When you look at CODRA, you'll be able to see the resource type and every single output that is assigned its respective identifier that reports to the resource type. So that means we've successfully created a multilinear persistent identifier wrapped up within within the doc ID. So why are we creating the doc ID? We felt that we need a world with more accessible scholarly data infrastructures. There's a certain degree to which linear identifiers can work. And we are seeing there's a lot of gray areas, especially in certain subjects, in certain workflows where linear identifiers cannot help. So now the option of having a multilinear identifier comes in very handy. So our solution is to come up with a hybrid digital object identification, linking local handles and DOIs. So beyond just creating the persistent identifier, the Africa PID Alliance also has a capacity building program, because we realize it's not a data management issue, especially if you look at it from the Global South issue, it's a data management issue. So it's not only a PID problem. So we partnered with Figshare and Aflia, and we have created a Moodle where we are training librarians twice a year on data management. So the first time we launched it, we had over 800 registrants from African countries, 21 African countries, and this year we trained in May in Namibia, and we are going to train next month in Kenya, whenever there are international conferences, library conferences.
Joy, I'm just going to jump in and say 2 minutes.
Okay, these are our government partners, and why we are doing this is that we've streamlined our access by improving citations and attributions. We are improving on efficient metadata management, and we are enhancing data integration. So these are the personas that we have so far. These are the use cases we are working with so far, and we have an extra new use case whom we are working with thanks to ISNI and Ringgold, which we are yet to launch. And these are our use cases. So we actually have active use cases. Some of them are universities and governments. And these trainings, you can see, are the actual trainings of the integration of doc ID within the respective institutions. As you can see, we have national museums, so that is governments. We have universities. Some of them you're familiar with them, like Stellenbosch University, the Museum of Burkina Faso, the Museum of Namibia. So we are truly happy to say that as much as we started 2 years ago, we are successful in launching a persistent identifier from Africa that can actually contribute to the global knowledge, especially when it comes to making our ecosystem as fair as possible. Thank you so much for listening to me.
We get the room mic working, please. All right, thank you, Joy. Any questions? Time for about one or two questions. All right, well, Joy, is this working? Okay, I'll ask a question. I think this is a really interesting project, and I did have a chance to actually talk with Joy about this a couple weeks ago. Can you say a little bit about the eligibility to create doc IDs? Is it going to be an individual, or will organizations need to have a membership to allow organizations to do it? Can you speak about that? Okay,
so we are working with More Brains to guide us on the phase 2 implementation, whereby we are going to look at the membership model. So for now, it is going to be individual. It is going to be two-pronged. So for now it is free. So, but then the membership will be at an institutional level. It will be at an institutional level. But then it also can be also at a project level. But so what we've done is that we've managed to break it down in various silos, whereby you can be a project within an institute with multiple researchers and use the doc ID, or you could be a super project in different countries that are working on a super project in different countries, which we are actually in the process of being involved in. It's called the Digitalis Humanities Project. It's one of the largest arts and humanities digitalization project on the continent. So we are going to work with them as a use case, and it is in 6 African countries. So you can be at a project level or at an institutional level, and then work on it as a member. And that's how we are going to create the membership model out of it. But individual researchers can access it for free, and even then, we intend to have individual researchers use it for free, because the doc ID is just not only a feed. Its nature is in such a manner that you can upload publications and outputs in it. So in the event that you do not actually have a repository, which we are seeing a lot in the continent, you do not have a repository, it can serve as a software as a service whereby you can upload your information. So that's why it's so important to have it both as an individual, for individual access, but with the membership model being accessible for the institutions and free for individual users.
All right, thank you, Joy. That's a very good description. So we're going to move on, but thank you very much. So thank you again, Joy, for joining us. Early morning for you, so we'll switch back to this computer.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
All right, our next speakers are Kathryn Vita and Kathryn Unsworth.
Oops, sorry. Thank you. You're a little bit taller than me. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. We've got limited time, so I'm just going to really jump in here. As research becomes more globally connected, building strong partnerships around skills development and training is becoming ever more important. By working together across regions and organisations, we can create skills development opportunities that are more inclusive, scalable and sustainable. Our presentation today will provide you with a high-level overview of a staff exchange pilot between the ARDC and the Digital Research Alliance of Canada, or the Alliance, which is a great example of a strong partnership in action. We are sharing knowledge, resources, fresh ideas to support the digital skills our research communities need, while also strengthening collaboration and learning between our two organisations. But before I get too carried away, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet. Today we are in Meanjin, Brisbane, on the lands of Turrbal and Yagara peoples. We pay our respects to elders past and present.
And I would just like to acknowledge that I'm traveling here from Tiohtià:ke, Turtle Island, also known as Montreal, Canada, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka, and a long-standing point of gathering for several First Nations.
Okay, so I wish it didn't do that. And we're going to be going up and down. So just to introduce myself, I'm Kathryn Unsworth. I am from the Australian Research Data Commons, or ARDC. I lead a team of 7 skills professionals at the ARDC, and together we focus on strengthening digital research skills across the sector. Our work mainly supports users of ARDC products, services and tools, and the infrastructure we deliver in partnership with others. Through the ARDC-Alliance staff exchange, I'm bringing my expertise to help build stronger connections, share practical tools, and support global collaboration in digital research skills development.
And yes, excellent. And so joining from the Digital Research Alliance of Canada, I'm the National Training Coordinator. In this role, I support the training functions across our key pillars in research data management, advanced research computing, and research software. And so working with a broad and diverse network of stakeholders where consensus building and collaboration are fundamental to success are the key areas that I'm bringing to this exchange. So who is the Digital Research Alliance of Canada, or otherwise known as the Alliance? So we're a not-for-profit organization funded by the Government of Canada to advance and to maintain the digital research infrastructure in Canada, or DRI. We're governed by an independent board of directors, guided by a researcher council, and accountable to over 115 member institutions across Canada. So the Alliance supports the management, storage, and use of the national advanced research computing, research data management, and research software infrastructure and services. So our mandate is really to strengthen to strengthen and to engage with researchers around the advanced use of DRI services in Canada. So really, we're dedicated to cutting-edge services and to the innovation across all disciplines.
So, a little bit about the organisation that I work for, the Australian Research Data Commons. The ARDC plays a leading role in shaping the nation's research data infrastructure, backed by the National Collaborative Research Infrastructure Strategy, or NCRIS. The ARDC gives researchers a competitive edge by making high-quality data assets more accessible, reusable, and impactful. Our mission is to accelerate research and innovation by supporting excellence in data creation, analysis, and retention. But we're more than just it's more than just about our infrastructure. We're a national enabler. Whether it's through skills development and training, platforms, or partnerships, the ARDC is helping Australia's research sector stay ahead of the curve.
So how did this partnership come to be? So the MOU was signed between our two organizations in December of in January of 2025, and is in effect until the end of next calendar year. And so the purpose of this MOU is really to facilitate the exchange bilaterally of like best practices, of knowledge transfer, and we're doing so through bilateral staff exchanges here in Australia and then back home in Canada. So the purpose is really for the cross-pollination of skills and for knowledge, and for enriching common priorities to build capacity across organizations. And it's important to note that this is a pilot. So we're doing this for the first time. Part of what we're aiming to do is to build a roadmap for what these international collaboration efforts could look like in the future. So the structure and the way that we've gone about this exchange. So as we said, this is a 2-year pilot between our two organizations. The purpose is to foster bilateral collaboration specific to workforce development and skills development. And we're doing so through these bilateral staff exchanges. So far, we met back in Canberra in February of this year to kick off the pilot. What we did here was give each other the fire hose of information of what each other's organization do in the area of training and skills development. We then did a long brainstorming session to look at where our organizations intersect in terms of priorities. And spoiler alert, we realized that we're really facing the same challenges here, there, and it seems after attending many sessions this week everywhere. So it was really easy for us to find areas on which we could collaborate and we could help each other in our respective jurisdictions. Kathryn then traveled to Canada in June to participate in our annual conference for DRI professionals funded by the Alliance, where we gave a very similar presentation and was an opportunity for Kathryn to meet the training and development folk from Canada. And now we're back here to continue to build upon the work that we've started. And so Kathryn will talk a little bit about the priorities that we've chosen to focus on and what the work around that has started to look like.
So given that we've both got day jobs, pretty full dance cards as well, we decided that we would limit it to 2 main priorities. And so through the current exchange arrangement, both the ARDC and the Alliance are focused on improving how training is discovered and accessed through the development and refinement of our respective national training registries, so DRESO in Australia and Explorer in Canada. Alongside this, there's growing attention on maturing the broader training landscape, particularly through the creation of digital research infrastructure user personas, learning pathways and competency models tailored to those personas. As both our organisations evolve, the priorities are changing, and so to meet emerging needs in digital research, explicitly AI, we're hearing about AI right across this particular conference. So these skills may also, these shifts may also reshape the focus of our staff exchange. So we'll aim to pivot as emerging priorities become quite apparent, and we may move into different areas. So what's working? The staff exchange through in-person collaboration has quickly built a very strong and productive working relationship between Kathryn and myself. Because our organisations share similar priorities in skills development, we've been able to build on existing initiatives without adding too much extra to our workloads. The exchange periods give us focused time to move activities forward while also strengthening connections beyond the pilot. And even with time zone differences, we've found it easy to coordinate with just minor adjustments to our schedules.
And so just quickly, because I realized we're at the end of our allotted time here, but what are some of the challenges that we're facing? So as Kathryn already touched on, we do have charged daily work as it is. So finding time to meet in between exchanges and to advance on that work can sometimes be a challenge because other operational priorities often take precedence. And then strategic shifts within our organizations can also affect the direction in which we take the pilot. So, for example, I've very recently been moved into a more strategic role, and so the scope of my work is changing. And so how does that affect our pilot, and how does that inform the priorities that we're choosing to collaborate on? And there's the knowledge transfer that I need to do now to make sure that this continues working as we've intended it to. And so what's next? Well, Kathryn will be coming back to Canada in Vancouver in March. This is tentatively set because organizational priorities are dynamic and always in flux. But we're continuing to work on our training to discovery registries, looking at the governance structures of those two services, and continuing to examine how we can collaborate on the training landscape work. And finally, given this more strategic approach, we're both looking at kind of how we can build in work around the training strategies for our two organizations.
And that's it?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Do we have time for questions? You want to jump into the question? Oh, yeah.
Kit Greenhill, ARDC. What would you do differently?
So the question was, what would we do differently? On my end, I think perhaps expanding the pilot to beyond just Kathryn and I, where we're just two individuals within a much broader organization, and the way that we've pulled other stakeholders from our jurisdictions into the pilot has been more ad hoc than formal. And so perhaps from the outset, looking at, who else could be part of this pilot, and to build in those proper channels to have them included from the beginning, so that there isn't this constant, context building and going back and trying to make sure that those we are bringing in do have all of the background information they need to participate.
Yes, so I would agree with that. It's really difficult because we are building the plane while we're flying it. So this is a pilot, so we're sort of trying to work out what's the best approaches. I think had our relationship, our relationship with each other not worked as well, then we would have had to have, sort of looked at maybe some ways of bringing us together, but it has fortunately been really great, so we haven't had to worry about those sorts of things. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know that there is anything else that we would change.
We may give you a different answer at the end of the pilot, though, so stay tuned.
All right, we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker up here, I think, is Alex Krueger.
Here we go. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Alex Krueger. I'm the product manager for the MortarCAPS Higher Learning Data Standard, and I'm here on behalf of MortarCAPS and CODATA to talk to you about how we are shaping the future of data in tertiary education. So firstly, an introduction. The MortarCAPS Higher Learning Data Standard, or MCDS for short, is the world's first unified tertiary data standard aiming to address all domains of higher education data. It's based in CODATA's Higher Education Reference Model, which is being used by more than 1,500 institutions globally. The standard itself is owned by an independent charity, so it's governed by and built for the sector, and development is led by input from institutions across the world. Unlike other models, the MCDS is funded by vendors, not institutions, to help ensure that it remains evergreen into the future without being a burden on the institutions who need it most. In the past year, the MCDS has spread rapidly, and we have now engaged nearly 100 institutions across Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, and we're currently in talks with peak member bodies for the sector in the United States. Our community includes all kinds of institutions, from sandstone universities to vocational education and pathway providers. But of course, the MCDS could not exist without our commercial partners, who have chosen to prioritize what's best for the sector, helping to fund and provide feedback on development and build the tools that the standard is meant for. As we continue to expand our community, we're building real momentum in delivering the plug-and-play ecosystem that the sector desperately needs to create a more efficient, sustainable, and future-ready landscape. But why is now the time for change? Currently, across the globe, institutions are facing rising costs of delivery, while industry is demanding skills-based educations, and emerging AI is requiring data interoperability and standardization. This is giving Australia the chance to lead globally. Hello? Okay. Traditionally, innovation in the higher education data space has moved at a snail's pace, and the sector has received a lot of criticism for remaining stagnant in a rapidly changing environment. The MCDS aims to change that, giving the sector some of the tools that it needs to stay resilient and future-proof. Without a common standard, every institution defines everything on its own and builds its own solutions. Right now, institutions have siloed systems all speaking their own languages, leading to fragmentation and duplication of effort across the landscape and reducing productivity. The MCDS solves these issues at the source, providing a single schema with multiple purposes, helping to create the plug-and-play ecosystem ready for an AI-driven future. The MCDS has simple but powerful aims. The main goal as an interoperability standard is to make systems talk to each other, using a standardized JSON schema to simplify integrations and reduce implementation costs. Through these shared data structures, we can improve pathways and learner mobility by mapping skills to recognized industry frameworks, which helps support cross-institution and cross-border credit recognition. This helps lower barriers for individuals, enabling new pathways to learning and career changes. And it helps institutions stay relevant and future-proof. We're tackling the challenges in our development through sector-led development, with a variety of working groups currently running across Australia and New Zealand and Canada. These working groups focus on both general development and on niche topics, such as research administration, which is being led by our partners at the Australian Research Data Commons and the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. We started this journey at the start of this year in February, and we have just completed our second major release with version 1.2. With the help of our friends at the ARDC and the Alliance, for version 1.3, we are now turning our focus to a new topic of research administration. This development will proceed through our Research Admin Working Group, which includes participants from both of these organizations, as well as any of our interested member institutions. And the first issue we're expecting to tackle is the management of persistent research identifiers. Next year, we will be turning our focus to prior learning assessment and recognition, aiming to support our vision for open education. Open education would be a learner-controlled, consent-based data sharing scheme inspired by the open banking scheme here in Australia. For those who aren't aware, the open banking scheme allows users to safely and securely share their banking data with accredited third parties, such as fintech apps or other banks, through secure APIs. Open education would work much the same way, allowing learners to share their education data, their course results, transcripts, and credentials securely with third-party applications, other institutions, and even employers. This would be a massive innovation for the sector, enabling simplified transfers between institutions and faster, more comprehensive recognition of prior learning. Gone would be the days of waiting ages for transcripts to be issued, emailing PDFs for manual verification, as learners would be able to provide their data at a moment's notice through these APIs, ready for credit assessment by AI. Tertiary education providers could also leverage the scheme for government reporting, and the data model could serve as the foundation for a holistic capability record. This holistic capability record, or HCR, would be a comprehensive, consent-driven, learner-controlled, and AI-ready digital record, capturing the full capabilities, the full spectrum of an individual's verified capabilities. It would be designed for lifelong portability, sector interoperability, and aligned with consumer data rights frameworks to give learners control of their data. For any individual, it would capture all of their academic credentials, big or small, as well as any formal or informal skills, with these mapped to existing government skills frameworks. It would also include any work-integrated learning, such as placements, co-ops, or internships, with the ability for the employers to verify these. The employers would also have the ability to verify skills and credentials of their existing employees who are part of the scheme. So similar frameworks have been tried before, but the HCR sets itself apart with the inclusion of well-being and health data relevant to the learner's success, as well as any additional career support, such as guidance, mentoring, or pathways that have helped them along their journey. While this would be fantastic for learners and institutions, the HCR, through this open education scheme, has so much potential and could pave the way for a new depth of analytics and research. Take one example. Recent evidence highlights that 1 in 4 young Australians experience a mental health disorder annually, with anxiety and depression currently on the rise. And unfortunately, existing supports are often fragmented and reactive. This mental health crisis and its compounding factors are leading to long-term impacts on educational achievement, chronic disease burden, and workforce participation. The HCR, through the Open Education Scheme, could serve as a data source for research investigating the impacts of this crisis, providing researchers unified records of learners' educational, social, and well-being journeys. The AI-ready design, with access through federated APIs, would enable researchers to use machine learning across linked data sets without compromising security, to help assess these impacts and deliver solutions to provide measurable reductions in diagnosable disorders. So to wrap things up, MortarCaps and CODATA are working to build the future of data in tertiary education, and we're looking to do so in the next 18 to 24 months. As an interoperability standard, the MortarCaps Higher Learning Data Standard is already making it possible for institutions to share data both internally and externally in a consistent format. And vendors are building the ecosystem to enable this to happen quickly and securely. The MCDS forms the backbone of our vision for the Open Education Scheme, which would allow students to own and control their data and enable them to seamlessly transfer between institutions and provide the confidence and their skills and qualifications that institutions and employers are looking for. The holistic capability record, which could be built off the back of this, would provide a comprehensive view of a learner's skills, knowledge, and capabilities, giving the full picture of their human capabilities needed in an AI-driven future. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you at hello@mortarcaps.org. Do you want? Yeah.
Well, we need, in case there's anybody
online. You said open education scheme, and there's a published, or there's a data standard behind this. Is there any intent to make that openly accessible so people can build their own tooling? Because looking online, it seems like it's only members who are able to get access to that schema. Is there any way to verify it or vet it before you become a member?
So in order to have access to the data standard, it is free for institutions to access through our partnerships with CODATA and Cuccio over in Canada. For vendors, it is a pay-to-play subscription annually, so they would purchase access to the standard and would be able to build their own tools off of that.
All right. Yep.
About the open education scheme, I was wondering if the name was something that was still in development or is something that's kind of set in stone, because I'm wondering how much of a confusion it would create with an existing movement called open education, very similarly to open science or open research, with a set of principles. Yeah.
No, the name isn't set in stone yet. We're currently in conceptual phases, so it's something we could definitely change in the future.
All right. Well, thanks, Alex, one more time.
Thank you very much.
All right, so next speaker is Daphne Raban. I think so, yeah.
Okay, just use this. Okay, thank you. So like the Monty Python group said, and now for something completely different. My name is Daphne Raban. I come from Israel, where I'm a chair of the National Committee for CODATA. I'm also a professor at the University of Haifa, a School of Business Administration, and until recently, academic head of the library at Haifa. So I've been fortunate to participate in a committee set up by the National Academy of Israel. The committee was tasked with thinking about how to design a program of studies that would bring into, let's say, data science-oriented thinking students from all disciplines. Okay, so the task was not to think about another data science program. No, it was the task was to create a curriculum, or to think about how to create a curriculum for bringing in people from the humanities, from law, from social sciences, from all academic disciplines into being curious about data, being more knowledgeable about data, and being able to implement data in their respective studies and research. Okay, so that was our task, and so I think I can skip the first point of why data science matters in this audience. I'm sure you can describe this much better than me. I'll talk about the challenge of data science in higher education, a word about the data cycle model, which is at the heart of this program, and the frameworks and partnerships that we think could be advisable and beneficial for such a program. So why data science matters, I think we all know, so we can skip this. Just to say maybe that data science is important not only for data scientists, so maybe this is not so trivial to think about. I know in this conference most people are highly professional in the field, but data science is relevant and interesting for people who are not necessarily professional in this field. So it's more about data literacy, I would say. So the challenge in higher education is really to attract and to interest people from softer sciences in this hard problem of data science. So we have data science professional programs in all universities and in many colleges in Israel, but most students who do not focus or major in data science lack exposure, and this is where our committee came in to think about these people. I didn't mention, but the committee was composed of professors coming from the various disciplines and various universities. So we had an attempt, at least, to be representative of all academic disciplines. Yeah, and there is, of course, the ongoing challenge of soft sciences that are reluctant to adopt data science tools. Sometimes it's even ideological to say, you know, we only think about narrative. We're not interested in your data, and so it's quite challenging sometimes to find a way to communicate with the different academic communities. So the need is for multidisciplinary integration, and it's really quite a challenge. So we know that there are at least 3 different audiences of data science on the campuses. The data science majors, that's obvious. There are the adjacent fields where students are, you know, they have an openness or an inclination towards data science. They could be students of engineering or of economics or of majors that have some kind of, I would call it data-driven orientation or mathematical or statistical orientation. And then there are all others, right? So there are people studying law, studying music, studying literature, studying history. All of those students have basic, if any, data literacy, and they need, in our opinion, some more access to understanding what data can do for them, and in return, they may be able to contribute to the larger community of the more specialized students, deeper thinking about issues such as ethics. So there is something to be gained from inter-community communications. So in thinking about these all students group as opposed to the professional students, the professional data science students, so we need to bring them to a point where they can identify a need for data, which is a special challenge. They need to be able to identify data sources, fetch and analyze data from various sources that are unique to their respective disciplines. We need to teach them about a critical approach to results, and there's been a lot of discussion here at the conference about data validity and things like that. So this comes under this second bullet, and of course the third and very important aspect is ethical conduct. How do you collect and analyze data ethically? An integral part of any program of studies. So the data cycle, I'm sure I also don't need to introduce that for this audience. It is a very typical cycle of defining a problem, collecting the data, cleaning it, so on and so forth. So this is a central idea that needs to be at the heart of preparing this curriculum. And in addition, it needs to be supported by a whole host of tools that the students need to study about, right? What are the tools for data collection? What are the best practices and tools for data cleaning? What are the best practices and tools for visualization, and so on and so forth? So a lot of tools that go along with the principles. And then, of course, bringing it up to current times, what are the special considerations and challenges brought about by the addition of artificial intelligence, large language models, and how can we best employ these tools for our research. By the way, I gave a talk exemplifying this on Monday, so if anybody's interested, I'm glad to share that. By the way, the curriculum that we've developed is also something that I'm glad to share if anybody's interested. Okay, so the framework that we developed has actually two large components. It has the central core that surrounds the data cycle, and then it has, for each discipline, it has the specialized solutions for each discipline, or specialized topics and sources and practices that are typical of that discipline. So we have the core course, and then we have around it, you know, the discipline-specific modules. So some of our recommendations also look at the learning methods or the teaching methods, which should be based on real-world data projects. Okay, so how to find real-world data and define a project around it and solve a problem or a project from the real world. Another principle is teaching students to work in teams. Okay, and being able to collaborate in teams, because we know that data work benefits a lot from teamwork. And finally, critical thinking is also an essential tool, for understanding or gaining deep understanding of data. Of course, I don't expect you to be able to read all of this slide. I just wanted to squeeze it into the presentation so that we if you can look it up online, you'll have all the information. So on the left here, we have that core course around the data cycle and all the, I would call it more universal principles that we all share. And then on the right, it goes to the more discipline-specific issues that need to be addressed in each discipline separately. Thank you. And in our full report, we also have discipline-specific courses. So as I said, in our committee, we had representatives of the different disciplines. So we have a recommendation for humanities students and a recommendation for social sciences and so on and so forth. Of course, I'm not going into that in the short framework that we have here at the conference, but if anybody's interested, again, please be in touch and I'll be glad to share. And last but not least, it's important while preparing such a course for campus implementation to be able to collaborate with relevant bodies on campus. And we recommended especially two bodies on campus. One is in each university, at least in Israel, there is a data science research center. So we recommend being in touch with them, for example, for locating data sets that are good for project-based learning. And the other body that should be contacted and would be very useful for this effort is the university library and data librarians and so on and so forth. So these are two internal bodies that should be involved in this. And the committee also recommended going, quote unquote, down to the high school level and also considering improving the skills and the knowledge of high school students in data science in order for them to come more prepared to college, because we find them not well enough prepared when they come already to the academic studies. So in closing, data science is, to our vision, a universal skill. The education must be inclusive, ethical, and interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, and it should prepare students for research work, academic research work, but also for real-world problem solving, such as in government and in business. So I forgot to mention my very, very dear partner, Professor Niva Chituv. He was a previous chair of the National Committee of CODATA for Israel and also a very esteemed professor in Israel. So I thank him for the collaboration and I thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you. Yes, questions?
Hopefully this is a fun question. As the father of two high school girls, one 18 and one 14, and I'm a data scientist and I want to encourage them to have these skills. What sort of skills are you thinking about? What sort of skills should they have that they don't currently have?
I think, well, this is my personal thinking now. First of all, make them more inquisitive. Make them ask more questions, make them ask more why questions. Why do things work the way they do? And the more they are trained to ask inferential questions, then the more data-oriented they become, to my understanding. And also, of course, try to make education more problem-based, project-based, more active, hands-on, and also, how should I say, less scary in terms of, I know especially young girls, unfortunately, get scared from numbers and get scared from analytical work, and it's unfortunate because there is no objective reason for that, and so we need to find ways to encourage that. And I think through real-world problems is a good way to think about it. I don't know, my kids are all grown up, so.
All right, thank you. We're going to move to our next speaker.
Thank you.
All right, so I think
recording in progress.
All right, so our next speaker is the video, so we're going to make sure the sound is going. I'll get this started. Laura Malloy is the speaker. She was not able to attend, but they provide a video. So we have sound on this. I've been told it's playing. No, no sound in the back?
On today, and pay my respects to elders past and present. So, by way of introduction, as part of efforts to make research data more fair, semantic interoperability is of course important to consider. Standards, controlled vocabularies and terminologies are well-established types of fair enabling resources that help us to create interoperable systems and metadata. I would like to introduce the CODATA RDMT as one such semantic resource. The RDMT emerged from the former CASRI glossary that some of you may be aware of. The CASRI glossary was intended as a practical reference for individuals and groups concerned with the improvement of research data management, or RDM. And in 2020, CASRI asked CODATA to assume responsibility for the curation of this glossary, which was a natural fit given CODATA's previous participation in the stewardship and development of the glossary, and our links with a wide range of task groups, working groups, national committees and projects, giving us a rich collaborative network of experience on which to draw. The CODATA RDMT is now published as a FAIR terminology through the Research Vocabularies Australia service run by the Australian Research Data Commons. So the goal of the refreshed terminology is to gather the key terms needed for a common understanding of the research data management domain. In this context, RDM refers to research data management practices covering the entire life cycle of the data, from planning research to conducting it, and from backing up data as it is created and used, to long-term preservation of data objects after the research investigation has concluded. We realised that the real power of the resource was its ability to support meaning across different contexts, making it a terminology rather than a glossary, which resulted in the change of name. Then we openly recruited a working group to review the terminology and to contribute expertise from different relevant sectors. And we established a rolling cycle of reviews with a fresh group of experts recruited for each time to ensure diversity of input. Our working group is openly recruited, but it is carefully selected to try and bring a range of subject knowledge and range of terminology experience, as well as other types of diversity. Many of our experts are really experienced in terminology work. Others are quite new to this sort of thing, but they bring very rich RDM knowledge. As convener, I see my job as being to help folk focus on the intellectual contribution, and I and the ARDC experts will deal with the administrative and technical work behind the scenes. I know when I started working on terminology work, I had little experience of these approaches, and I want to help bring interested new people into this sort of work if I can. So this year's review cycle started in January, and we ran through a series of working meetings through to the summer. Each active working group member chose terms to review and either accept, edit or delete the existing term, and we also gathered any suggestions for additional terms. Then we carried out a public review where again everyone is invited to take a look and supply feedback. Any constructive feedback that comes through from that is presented back to the working group, and we discuss it and we vote if necessary, and then we confirm the finished product. At the end of this cycle, we ended up with 379 terms, 107 of which were reviewed in this cycle. Most of these were terms that were not reviewed in the previous cycle, and that was deliberate. So in this way, we're making iterative progress through the entire set of terms in a manageable, if fairly intense way. And all of this is without requiring anyone to use specific platforms or tools other than some form of spreadsheet and their email. The resulting worksheet is formatted and checked to ensure that the SCOS fields are in good shape. The other fields are completed. I do an initial conversion using SCOSplay. Shout out to Thomas Franca for his handy toolkit. And then our technical colleagues at ARDC do a number of checks to ensure things are correct and everything is working properly before we upload to the Research Vocabulary Australia server. So moving on to reflections and future directions. I want to note that the terminology is not an attempt to list every concept, tool and standard relevant to RDM. Rather, we aim to clarify terms without easily found authoritative definitions elsewhere, and we want to offer an accessible definition in the context of contemporary RDM practice. Definitions are intended to be clear and unambiguous, and where possible fit with common usage. We aim to produce definitions that are applicable across RDM activities of key stakeholders, including those working on research data management tasks, within the context of research, digital curation and preservation, data management, research policy, open data advocacy, computer science, information management, research administration, library, scholarly publishing, digital archiving, and research funding roles. Some terms may have more than one definition, in which case the relevant context is specified. Our aim for the RDMT is to create and maintain the highest quality terminology possible within the bounds of our resources. To that end, we are also working towards bringing definitions closer to the format specified in the ISO Standard 704 for interoperability as well as for quality reasons. The approach to publication is also influenced by the principles laid out in the paper 10 Simple Rules for Making a Vocabulary Fair, and is supported by our collaboration with the ARDC to publish the terminology in machine actionable form. We are also keenly aware the terminology should serve as much of the global RDM community as possible. The 2025 review cycle involved participants based across 13 countries. This is a welcome marked increase in geographical spread compared to the previous cycle, which had representation from 6 countries. So I'm really encouraged by that. I'm also encouraged by the interest shown in creating translations of the reference version. To date, we have received inquiries about translations into other variants of English and variants of Chinese, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. So if you'd like your language to be involved, please get in touch. I'm also really happy that, in contrast to the broader trends within science, we attract a high level of female expert participation. In our current working group, 13 participants from 19 are female. In the previous round, 13 of 17 were female. I'm really keen to celebrate and continue this success and do what we can to further improve diverse cross-community participation. So I hope this has been of interest to those of you looking for a terminology for the RDM field for your own use, and/or those of you who are exploring approaches to terminology management and development. You can freely access the RDMT through the URL here on the slide, and also hopefully through the QR code here. And you can contact me anytime by this email address for any feedback or questions. I really hope the RDMT will be useful in your work, and thank you so much for listening.
All right. So yes, I do invite you to contact Laura if you're interested in this. I think it's a great resource for all of us. All right, sorry, give me a second here. So yes, our next speaker, Marian Lovelace Tozer and Amani Guda Bosas. Please correct me if I pronounced your names wrong.
Thank you very much. My name is Marian, and it's a great pleasure to be joined by the amazing Amani, dream collaborator. And we are both members of the highly skilled workforce development team at the ARDC. You've probably heard a bit about us around this conference, and it's a great pleasure to be sharing with you 10 simple rules for researchers training the rapidly evolving workforce. We'd like to start by acknowledging the Turrbal and Yagara people as the traditional owners of the lands on which we are today, and pay our respects to their elders past and present. And I can say it's a great pleasure to be here. We'll also pay respects to or recognise that this work has taken place across Australia, and in particular I want to pay my respects to the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people from where Amani and I are from. Upskilling the next generation of the researcher workforce is pivotal. we've curated these 10 simple rules to assist researchers in developing and delivering training to meet the skills required for evolving demands in the workforce. These 10 simple rules were inspired by discussions that took place at an event called the Digital Research Skills Summit. More on that later. And we're very proud to announce that these rules have been published in PLOS Computational Biology. We'll also share a link so you can access that at the end of this presentation. Given the time constraints, we've got 10 rules, we've grouped them into 4 different categories, starting with designing and developing a training strategy. Rule 1, keep the learners at the centre of the training. A successful learning design prioritises the individual needs and preferences of learners and will align the course content with learners' motivations and contextualise training with real-world applications. Rule 2 encourages the use of skills frameworks. Identify role profiles or personas to determine the skills and knowledge needs and competencies of the researchers. From this, you can identify skills gaps, and this will inform the development of the learning pathways for training. Our next 2 rules describe the importance of outreach and community. Leverage existing knowledge, resources, training materials, and talents to enhance your training. A few times during IDW, I've heard people mention they're flying the plane while they're building it. So here's where we encourage you to use the blueprints and the parts that have been built by others before you. There are some excellent resources on this slide, and I encourage you to check them out, including the Digital Research Skills Australasia, TRESA or TRESA, depending on how you pronounce it, which is a skills and training registry that provides a free online space to connect with trainers, discover digital research training events, resources, and providers. ResBaz, or the Research Bazaar, is an annual international festival with a focus on digital literacy and training for researchers by researchers. Engage with trainer communities and avoid training in isolation. The Carpentries and Our Ladies are 2 excellent digital upskilling training communities, which we encourage you to get involved with. I'll now pass over to Amani.
Cool, thank you so much for that, Marion. That was fantastic. It's always amazing to work with you too. Awesome. Did I go? Okay. So, so Marion right now has taken you through what we do before we plan for training. So what I will go through are the practical actions that take place when we start to develop training. And the first is to apply strategies to deliver training. And we can do this over 3 parts. So Rule 5 is to systematically manage logistics. Now, you can do this very low tech. So this is basically how, so I have to go a step back. So this is basically how you would manage enrolments and registrations for a training event. You can do this very low tech. You can have an Excel spreadsheet and put in all the enrolments, but if most of you work, or if researchers work in universities, most likely you will have registration and enrolment systems in place. So it would be best to work those so you can organise that and streamline that process as best as possible. Rule 6 actually goes into delivering the training and engaging with learners and keeping learners at the centre. And it's really important to engage and communicate with learners in a way that that information will transfer to them. And keep in mind things such as activities that you can do to engage the learners that are fit for purpose for that specific training. Otherwise, you'll end up just standing and talking to learners and they may not engage with the content that you are trying to communicate. And finally, once that's done, you need to improve your training, thanks Marion, through assessment and evaluation. So just to clarify what these 2 things are, so assessment is the measure of a learner's skills and knowledge. So think of things like dreaded quizzes and all that, while evaluation helps you to improve future training. So think of things like feedback surveys. And together, when you combine the information from these, you can actually figure out exactly the impact and assess the efficacy of your training. So these things are very important. Which, you know, if you're a trainer, you know that these things are important, but researchers who are delivering training may not know this. Okay, so what do we do after we finish delivering the training? So these are the post-training operations. So not only do the learners have homework, but the trainers have homework too. So, and also I wanted to add, what happens when your training is really popular, you're reaching capacity, and you've done such a great job, and now you're being asked to run repeat sessions. Well, rules 8 and 9 will take you through that succession planning. So this is so you can plan for training to go beyond the day that you deliver it, and we go into a bit more detail. So rule 8, there's a lot more detail, which I encourage you to read that, which I won't go into too much detail, but it is about succession planning. And rule 9, as part of that succession planning, keeping in mind that when you are developing resources, so this could be anything from practical guides even to rubrics, keeping in mind that it follows FAIR principles. So throughout this conference, you've probably maybe been to a lot of talks which were talking about FAIR enabling resources, and there were a lot of really great talks about that over the past few days. But it is important, not just for yourself, but for anyone else that will run the sessions, and it will enable you to scale your training sustainably, and the future you will thank you. So finally, our final rule, Rule 10, highlights the need to recognise a vision for future success. So as Marianne mentioned earlier, in our 2023 Digital Research Skills Summit, everyone that got together were discussing this vision for future success, and it's and the importance of professional development within researchers, and that when you're creating training, it's one piece in a larger ecosystem of digital research skills training. It's not just one isolated training, it's a bigger piece of training, of upskilling, capability building of the research community, and to keep that in mind when researchers are creating this, upskilling the research community. So in conclusion, through engaging with these guidelines, researchers providing training can collectively build a culture of lifelong learning and skill development within the research community. And if you wish to find out more, here is the QR code as promised of our article. It's on PLOS Computational Biology, so it's open access. You can access it any time, and we also have the link there if you can't scan the QR code. Or feel free to reach out to either Miriam or myself if you have any questions. Finally, just wanted to acknowledge all these wonderful people that were part of the Digital Research Skills Summit in 2023 and were also part in the writing this paper. Some of them are in this room now. I see you all. You're awesome. And thank you all to these wonderful people. And finally, as Marianne mentioned, there is a little bit, we do have a Digital Research Skills Summit coming up this Monday, which is in a few days. It will be here in Brisbane and at Griffith University, so not that far from here either. If you are here and you'd like to attend, feel free to scan the QR code, but we also have online option as well, which Marianne and me will actually be the DJs of the Zoom that day, and we'd love to see you guys there. So yeah, scan the QR code for more information or type in that research link, or that URL link. Oh yeah, and it's free registration. Sorry, thanks Marianne. It's free. And that's it. Thank you very much. We're open to any questions and career contact details.
Yeah, so Kathryn Vita from the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. I have 2 questions, and so in interest of time, I may invite you to answer either one or the other, but the first is, how do you operationalize these 10 simple rules in the field, let's say? So what does that look like? How do you help trainers to put these 10 simple rules into action? And then the second question is around keeping learners engaged. So what do you recommend for keeping learners engaged in between sessions, understanding that engagement during the session is really important, but then between sessions, keeping them kind of engaged on a learning pathway, and then how do you kind of recruit new learners into that ecosystem? Thanks.
Sure. With engagement, did you want to speak to that with Nectar?
Yes.
And
I'll talk to your first question briefly, around how do we Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sorry, yeah. So how do you encourage operationalization of these 10 simple rules?
Yes, that's a challenging question. So when we were writing these rules, we had in mind that a lot of researchers are thrown into the deep end with being asked to deliver training without any prior experience and perhaps for the first time delivering training because they have knowledge in that area. And so the idea is that these can serve as a guidebook that people can follow, get great advice from. We're not enforcing them in any way, but it is a really helpful guide for researchers to access.
With engagement.
Yes. Regarding your second question, I'm trying to remember which rule it is. I believe rule 5?
Yeah, I think it was, rule 5 or 6, yeah. So engaging learners. So in that particular...
6.
Yeah, 6, yeah. So within that particular context, that was specifically while delivering training. But we do have, but we do go into detail in the paper about how you can engage with learners before and after, the sort of tips and tricks that you can use to engage with them before, like what sort of pre-reading you can give them, what sort of prompts you can give them before training and after training as well. How you can stay in contact with the learners, obviously if they opt in, and the sort of feedback that you can, receive from those learners as well over certain periods of time using various established methods from other learning designers and other educational designers as well, which again, we didn't have time to go into it too much, but that is definitely something that is considered in there as well.
One more. Okay, I'm Kathryn from South Africa. So first question is, I imagine you do provide the training yourself, like just if like the ARDC provides training to students.
Oh yes.
Right. Okay. So then I can ask my question now. So do students pay for this training? Yes. No.
This particular training, this is a guidebook that we had created based off discussions from a previous skills summit. So this is something that some people, it's free as well because it's on PLOS computational biology and they can use that to help them to deliver training themselves.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is, so we often have a dilemma, so I'm also in academia. So a dilemma would be, I have a past student who's had access to the material and now they email me a year later asking, can I send them what they learned last year?
Oh, yeah.
See, so now what is the approach? Because now we're looking at the accessibility part of the, you know what I mean? So is it, and I think anyone can comment, should I send them the content or no?
That's really up to your institution as well. So it depends on where the IP belongs. So this particular type of, the particular type of training that we describe here is short format training. And it's specifically, it's specifically academics or researchers teaching other researchers. So it's not undergraduate course design sort of 10 simple rules guidebook. It's more, so if you're working as a researcher in a university and you may know how to code in R and they ask you, can you please set up some time to train these other researchers in how to use R? So it's within those sort of, it's those more internal, which we probably should have explained a little bit more at the start, but it's more specific to short format training. But if it's something, if it's more of a postgraduate, undergraduate, or if it's one of those, then that's really up to yourself and the institution where the IP lays. So I wouldn't, All
right, thank you.
No
And our final speaker of the session, Mohammed Mustafa.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I am Mohammed Mustafa, the community specialist at DataSite. The first part of my presentation, I am going to present on behalf of my colleague, Raban, from the Indian Statistical Institution, who was not able to be here, unfortunately. So I think when we talk about global open science adoption, it's really important to cite a global standard. So we always refer to the UNESCO recommendation on open science that was launched in 2021, where the UNESCO identified 4 important pillars to help communities like universities and the research organizations to achieve open science. For the concern of time, I will not go to each pillar in details, but we have open scientific knowledge, where the UNESCO was talking about open access for publication and open research data. We have also open science infrastructure, open dialogue, and open conversation with different knowledge systems. Within the open science infrastructure pillar, the UNESCO was talking about and giving some examples for what they mean by open research infrastructure. So they highlighted, for example, the important role of open access repositories, open research data repositories, general repositories, open access publishing platform to disseminate various research outputs and the resources that universities and the research organizations are producing. And within that pillar in particular, the UNESCO was talking about the importance of integrating different persistent identifiers like DOIs, ORCID IDs into research workflows. So yeah, I thought it would be good to start from this point. So we have all UNESCO member states agreed to implement and to adopt these global principles. I can skip this one because I highlighted it in the UNESCO recommendation. Japan also did some research around the problems and how different communities also are facing challenges when it comes to adopting the open science principles. And he summarized these points into 3 main elements, like limited research infrastructure. Like in some communities, they will not have the repositories infrastructure, for example, at the universities to disseminate their outputs. At some communities, they don't have specialized data repositories where research data can be collected and can be published through these repositories infrastructure. And that comes to different reasons. For example, lack of funding and investing in building this infrastructure. And we have also another challenges, which is lack of awareness among the communities around the general practices and policies for open science and open research. We also have challenges around, for example, the value and the importance of adopting persistent identifiers, why bids are important, and how they can help, for example, connect different research outputs and the resources with the contributors or the authors who created this and the academic institutions as well. Plus, in some emerging and regional communities, we see less opportunities for collaboration and networking as well. So Japan did this research to check on the current status of Indian open data repositories. So he found that in recent years also there was an increase where universities in India started to establish their data specialized repositories to collect research data and to start disseminating it in these repositories. However, when he checked the RE3 data registry, he found that the adoption of persistent identifiers in particular is very low among data repositories in India. So even if they took the first step of establishing these these specialized data repositories, the adoption of persistent identifiers among the data repositories in India that are currently registered in RE3 data, so are not that high. So yeah, so in his research, he highlighted the current status for the data repositories in India and the adoption also of persistent identifiers. So in this part, I'm going to talk more about DataCite and our effort also to enhance or to participate or contribute to solving the equitable problem. So yeah, start with a quick introduction about DataCite and who we are. So we are a global community of research organizations. All of these research organizations are coming together because they share a common interest. We all want to ensure that all research outputs and the resources are openly available and connected, because we believe that this will really help us in advancing knowledge. So what we do is, as a community, we make research more effective. How we do that? We use metadata information to connect all research outputs and the resources. So we support the creation and management of DOIs for over 30 types of research outputs, resources, and activities as well. So our members can register DOIs from samples and images to data sets and awards. But we are not only a DOI registration agency, we help also our members to increase the visibility and discoverability as well for all the outputs that they register, so we can help to achieve, in general, increase the reusability of these research outputs. And of course, we are a non-profit organization registered in Germany since 2009. So quickly, within the current community of DataCite, we have over 1,600 organizations. So a wide range of organizations will join the DataCite community. We have universities, we have research institutions, we have museums who will join the DataCite community to register their outputs. We have members across 64 countries, and we have registered over 100 million DOIs. But because we are really keen on building that global community, and we are investing also in that. So in 2023, we launched the Global Access Fund, GAF. So the Global Access Fund was established to provide financial support, because we also, while having conversations with different communities, we acknowledge that there are these gaps, there are these challenges. So as a contribution from DataCite, and I think it's important to highlight this, we are not saying that the GAF will solve the equitability issue, but this is a contribution from DataCite to help emerging and regional communities' challenges. So GAF was established to support communities that currently are underrepresented in the global open science infrastructure within our communities, and we were focusing our effort on two tracks. The first track is to fund and support outreach activities, where we want to raise awareness among the communities around the importance of adopting bids, around the importance also of open research practices in general. And the second track that the Global Access Fund was supporting is the infrastructure aspect, because as Jiban highlighted, and we also at DataCite did this research, so we found that in some communities they lack the underlying infrastructure that is helping them to disseminate their outputs. So GAF was launched in 2023, and we launched 2 rounds of the Global Access Fund so far. So within these 2 rounds, we have received 400 applications from different regions across Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America as well. And as you can see from the number of applications, so there is really a huge need in the community to receive this fund, so they can work on addressing the challenges that the regional community are facing. So within the first round of the Global Access Fund, we awarded 12 organizations across Lebanon, Mexico, Uganda, India, Argentina, Cote d'Ivoire, Zimbabwe, Indonesia, Georgia, Tunisia, and Nigeria. So we had wide spectrum of organizations. So we had, for example, National Center in a university who's in a country who is working on a national level to support organizations. Or we had an NGO who wants to organize outreach activities in their community to talk more about open science, how they can implement open science in the ground. We launched also a second round of the Global Access Fund, and we are working with 8 awardees this year from Ethiopia, Ghana, Jordan, Kenya, Malawi, Pakistan, Tunisia, and Vietnam. And very quickly, I want to highlight these 2 projects. So with within the first cohort of the Global Access Fund, we worked closely with the National Center for Scientific and Technical Documentation in Tunisia. So this is a national center under the Ministry of Higher Education. They already had 2 national level repositories for thesis and dissertation and another national repository for journals, but they needed that fund to enhance these repositories, and they also wanted to increase the awareness among their communities about persistent identifiers. They want to communicate with the stakeholders in the country to convince them with the value of investing and adopting persistent identifiers in research workflows. So within their Global Access Fund, they performed several outreach campaigns, delivered several workshops, and started to also engage different stakeholders in the community. In line with that, they were working on the technical infrastructure part. They enhanced the repositories. They had some materials they want to digitize and upload to the repository, built an integration with DataCite. And yeah, all of this, after their conversation within their community, they were able to establish the Tunisian DataCite consortium and opened the door with this consortium for universities and the research organizations in the country to register DataCite DOIs for various outputs. And so far we have, for example, 7 organizations that are part of the consortium, and they are registering DOIs with rich metadata information. Very quickly, I want to spotlight on the second example. We are working with the African Population and Health Research Center in Kenya, who is doing a fantastic job on raising awareness among African health researchers about research data management. So we are working closely with them, where they are developing an outreach programs to connect with African researchers and raise awareness among research data management. They are hosting an in-person workshops. They did an online curriculum for African researchers, so they would be able to access it and register in these training programs. So yeah, so this was a quick introduction about the Global Access Fund. We are aiming to launch a 3rd round of the Global Access Fund. So if you want to support our effort in supporting these regional communities, please get in touch with us. Or if you want to apply, please keep an eye on the DataCite website. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very important project. Anybody want to follow up with a question here? All right, well, I think we're all thinking about lunch. We can hear people outside. But I want to thank all the speakers again. These are really great presentations.